For Gareth Jones on Speed, some breaking business news. Jenson Button's stock in Formula One has now fallen to such a low point that he is to be nationalised. The new government package will make him the racing driver equivalent of British Leyland.
Gareth Jones on Speed!
Hello and welcome to an episode of Gareth Jones on Speed, which was recorded under completely natural lighting. There was no artificial lighting used in the recording of this show whatsoever, because we've done it immediately after the Singapore Grand Prix. Zog, Richard, did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Spectacular. I thought that was one of the best looking races I can remember seeing. You know, it might have been nice if there'd been a bit more action on track at times, but yeah, I like this nighttime racing thing.
Yeah, I swore that I wasn't, after watching qualifying yesterday, I wasn't going to use the word Blade Runner. But it did look a bit like Blade Runner. I'm sorry, but it did. I can't help it.
Actually,
that's good. We like that.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. Yeah. It was great.
If they combined that thing that they do at the end of rugby matches these days, well, they did at the Millennium Stadium, where they have...
Well, they all have a bath together and pretend they're not
There
gay.
is that, yeah, that is true. No, the thing where they have giant flames blasting up into the sky.
that,
And the winner is...
yeah.
If they put that on the Singapore circuit, it would be the Blade Runner Grand Prix, wouldn't it?
would,
That would do it. But
Or if the cars could fly, you know, if they would
That would
take off
definitely do
spinner
it.
style, that would do it.
Talking
Although,
about
in fact, going over those curbs, sometimes
Exactly.
they did, yeah.
That's what I was going to say. And I was very pleased to hear Brundle saying, and I think I said this to you when we were watching the race, that Brundle said, oh, you know, you hit those curbs and you're in the air, and while you're in the air, you're slowing down. Only a racing driver would think like that, wouldn't he? That's fantastic. It was some good racing. I hate to do this, but well done, Alonso.
Yeah, he deserved it. Fair play to
Was
him.
he start? He was 15th on the grid, was he?
He didn't make it into the second session.
So fair play.
Yeah, and it was Lewis who was 10th at the end of Q2, wasn't he? He only just scraped through into Q1 in qualifying.
Yeah, very close.
That was a bit of a worry, wasn't it? But Lewis got there in the end and scored 6 points for third place. Nice to see him on the podium with Nico.
Yeah.
And that Spanish fella.
Yeah, and interesting little bit of body language that I think we all picked up on when the three drivers were getting ready for the podium, toweling off the sweat and being weighed and all that kind of stuff. Lewis greets Nico. They're, you know, nice and chummy and matey. I don't think Lewis and Alonso even looked at each other.
Well,
They
I
were
think
just
if you now
completely
look
ignoring each
in the
other.
Oxford English Dictionary under the word blanking, it says, see what Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso did to each other after the Singapore Grand Prix. It was quite spectacular and noticeable,
Quite telling.
but fair enough.
Yeah, you know,
Because,
you wouldn't expect them to like each other
no.
after what happened last year.
Ron Dennis said today, or yesterday, I suppose it is today in terms of Singapore time, that floodlit Grand Prix, such as the one we've just watched at Singapore, was going to change Formula One. Do you think it will? Do you think we'll have more now?
What does he mean? In what way?
I suppose one could speculate that if he's right in the sense that if everyone suddenly thinks that racing at night is a good spectacle, it's going to be much, much easier to get maybe more races in the Far East that will then take place at traditional European viewing times. It's simply more likely that there are more races in the Far East, and that may mean fewer races in some of the traditional.
It's not a new idea, though, because I had a conversation with Sheikh Maktoum about... thank you.
Dropped something there.
About 4 years ago, and he was saying, you know, Gareth, I tried to get them to run the Malaysian Grand Prix under spotlights, but they couldn't afford to light it, is what he said to me. And so he was thinking about it for exactly the same reasons, to racing in the Far East, but playing to where the money is, or rather where the audience is. The money's in the Far East, the audience is in Europe. But they couldn't manage it. That's not to say that all races, in my opinion, in the Far East should be run under floodlit conditions. Personally, I love the idea of getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning for the first race of the season from Albert Park. It adds excitement. I've waited, 6 months for the start of the season. I'll happily get up in the middle of the night for it. That works for me, and I think enough people do.
I kind of feel the same, although strictly speaking, I wouldn't say I feel excited about getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's more a case of tolerating getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
You usually just go to
bed. Where I would normally we wouldn't even consider it. Yes.
I think if all the races were floodlit, it would stop being special. I think what you ought to do is vary it up. Coming back to A1 Grand Prix again, one of the things I loved about A1 Grand Prix was the race that they had at Sentul, and I'm wearing a Sentul race circuit T-shirt at the moment for those listening in colour. And the Sentul race, the Sentul circuit, which is in a town called, it's got a really rude name, Bogor. Great name. it's in the middle of the jungle. So you've got a circuit with great big green leafy things around the outside, and king cobras.
Trees, yeah.
That's it, yeah. And king cobras on turn 6, and I kid you not.
Really?
Have I told you that story?
The one about the... Oh, you get it.
I haven't told it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've told Zog, but maybe I've not told it on the show. I went around the circuit, and Paul Kenny, a security guy, had just been around the circuit before the race, and he said, "You know, I was just over at turn 6 or whatever it was, and I saw something standing up by the side of the circuit. I thought, what's that? A standing tap? That's a dangerous thing to have. I'm security. I'm going to go over and investigate." As he walked over to it, the tap turned round to look at him.
No.
It was a king cobra, stood up, spitting. So the advice given to the drivers was stay in your cars if you spin off.
Really?
Yeah. But that's great. You know, you need a race that's, you know, at night in Formula One. You need a race that's in the middle of, let's say, Paris or London. I think the Hyde Park race would be great.
And you need a race where there's a danger of drivers getting bitten by cobras if they get out of the car. Is that what you're saying?
Or a race in Wales. We could have dragons breathing fire at them. That would do it, wouldn't it?
Actually, now you're talking.
A Snowdon Grand Prix.
I was kind of sort of mulling over my head maybe sort of what some of the other ways to deal with, let's say, cutting chicane issues might be. Because obviously, you know, in the light of recent races, recent events, there's a bit of a... Yeah, there's kind of a question about how you might want to penalise a driver for cutting a chicane. How do you dissuade them from going across the chicane, basically, without... Exactly. Well, yeah, you know, concrete wall. You know, nice high curbs or actual sort of concrete walls would do it. But then you've got the problem of, you know, obviously breaking the car. So we're trying not to do that. You know, and you want to keep the cars going, which is why we went away from gravel traps and went onto these these runoff areas. Okay, well, what we've got to do now? You want to get maybe some. You know, local youths perhaps stand them around the runoff area, just have them, I don't know, you know, lobbing rocks,
the Hackney Grand Prix,
you know, eggs and paint,
teenagers with knives
going off the runoff area.
No,
that's going to put off. That's definitely going to.
This idea. I can develop this a little more. What if in the more tropical countries where the race happens, we'll develop this, as Gareth said, that sometimes you have by the track these big leafy things which we've established are called trees apparently.
Yeah, trees,
I don't know, it's like opal fruits and starbursts. They probably changed
on.
the name, I don't know. And then you have immensely poisonous spiders in them, and the vibrations of a car going across the chicane under the trees, spiders fall out of the trees into the cockpit.
No, I really don't like spiders. I'm not having this.
Good job you're not an F1 driver.
Maybe the F1 drivers don't like spiders. That'll stop them cutting the chicane.
Yeah, but I'm gonna. If we do that, I'm going to be watching the race. I'm going to be looking away from the screen all the time. No, it's horrible.
I've got it. No, I've got it, guys. The answer. The Iraq Grand Prix. If you go off at a chicane, you're held hostage for 6 months or something like that. That'd stop them.
Yeah, a team has to pay a €100 million ransom to get you back or something. Yeah.
Well, in the case of Sebastian Bourdais, they probably wouldn't bother.
What's the matter, Peter?
It's 2 days until the opening of our motorsport-themed angling shop, and we still haven't got a relevant celebrity to cut the ribbon at the opening.
That is a problem.
Yes, it is really quite a big problem. What are we going to do?
Don't worry. Looking for an F1-related celebrity but can't quite afford an actual driver? Then why not book Felipe Massa's dad? He looks quite like Felipe himself, but slightly fatter, slightly balder, and slightly not as good at driving. Felipe Massa's dad.
Where's that voiceover coming from?
I don't know, it's a bit weird.
Shut up! You are actors and you chose to live in an advert. Yes, Felipe Massa's dad. All the cartoon-faced, wide-eyed fun of Felipe Massa at a fraction of the price. From the people who brought you Anthony Hamilton, the sinister version of Lewis.
Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
Richard, what have you been driving, Richard? Anything. It's my favourite topic. What have you been driving?
What have I been driving?
Yeah.
I know what I was going to tell you, because the last time we met, I didn't mention this on the show, I did the 3 Peaks Challenge with 4 mates. You know, there's this thing where you try and climb the 3 highest mountains in Britain, so Ben Nevis in Scotland, Scafell Pike in the Lake District in England, and then Snowdon. in Snowdonia in Wales.
Urwyddfa.
Does sound like an awful lot of climbing.
It's a lot of climbing. Now, of course, I am quite lazy and I like driving. So what I did was I was the wheelman for it.
You see,
this is where the story's going.
This.
See, because
I like this.
so me and some mates, we go away walking every year, just a bit of sort of yomping up and down hills in the Lake Districts, and then drinking a lot of scotch in the evenings, and it's all very nice. But this is a bit more serious, and I said, I'll do it with you, and they went, oh well, actually we needed someone to do the driving, and we don't know anyone else who likes cars as much as you and likes driving. Also, the subtext being, we don't know anyone else who can blag a nice big car for us to do it in. So I thought about this quite a lot, because we went away walking a couple of years ago and I borrowed a Land Rover Discovery.
You talked about it on the show, yeah.
And one of the things about those big 4x4s is that, you know, they've got the split tailgate. Now, it's something you don't realise until you do, like, one of these things, and it's why people like Range Rovers and they go to, like, eventing and stuff like that. Fold down the bottom bit of the tailgate, you can sit on it, you can take muddy boots off, you can just sit there and watch things, you can eat food while you sit there. It's all very nice, like a little park bench on the back of your car. Brilliant. So I thought, well, this is what we need for the Three Peaks Challenge, because it's a serious sort of logistical operation. A lot of miles driving, aside from the metres of zig up and down the mountains for the poor saps who had to do that, whilst I sat in the Toyota Land Cruiser that I'd blagged. That new one, the big one, with the V8 diesel engine in it.
You're doing a lot of driving.
Well,
if it was a V8 petrol, you couldn't afford to do it. It's a charity gig, mate.
What I thought was we need big, spacious, big boot, because we've got to get a load of kit in it, and also I had to get all the camping stoves and the cook 'em food when they came off the mountain. So space, we need something that's reasonably brisk, but also good range, because you are doing big mileage between these mountains in 24 hours. That's the bit I didn't mention before. You've got to do all this in 24 hours.
You see, I'd just be thinking old Mercedes estate, but somehow I know I'm wrong.
It's good.
But,
it's good, but it's not right, because this is the thing, that the Land Cruiser, I thought, perfect. It was either that or a Range Rover, and I looked, and the Land Cruiser just seems to be more massive, and also it was new, so I thought, well, it's a good excuse to try a new car that I've not tried. So I borrowed one of those from Toyota for the challenge, and I picked it up the day before I sort of set off to get to Scotland, and I was thinking, oh God, I should have got a Range Rover. Because that Range Rover with the V8 diesel in they do now is superb. It's you know, there's always that cliche you read in car magazines. You know, you can barely tell it's a diesel. Just a faint tinkle at idle and smooth as you like on the go. And it's always pretty much rubbish. You can still tell it's a diesel. That Range Rover genuinely is extraordinary. That some of the BMW ones and that Jag V6, and that's it. Otherwise, anyone tells you can't tell it's a diesel, they're lying. You can. And the Land Cruiser, you could really tell it was a diesel.
Which it's not the Colorado, is it?
No, they've stopped calling it that now. They just call it the Land Cruiser V8. And if it's not the Land Cruiser V8, then it means it's the smaller one that used to be the Colorado, but isn't anymore.
Right.
And the big one used to be the Amazon, and now it's just the V8.
A woman with one breast sawn off. The Amazons used to do that. Did you know that? Amazon women.
Amazon women with archery, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
In
God,
in the legend.
Yeah, in the legend, in order that they could pull the drawstring back, they would sever their right breast so it didn't get in the way. Yeah. So has this Land Cruiser got a bit missing on the right-hand side, perhaps? No?
No, I did have a close shave with a bus on the Marylebone Road, but I think it was all right. So, anyway, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise you. So, quick précis of it, got in the Land Cruiser, I thought, oh God, you can tell it's a diesel, and it can really pull, because it's mightily torquey, but a bit noisy.
V8 diesel,
and just a bit, oh God, it was on the rides really thunky, and the interior as well. The problem with those big Land Cruisers, even the biggest and the poshest ones, is, and this is where they differentiate for a Range Rover is designed at its core to be luxurious and superb.
Yeah.
And a Land Cruiser, unfortunately, that same car is sold in the Australian outback and in parts of Africa that have barely been explored as a very basic utility vehicle.
Yeah, it's a basic truck.
So what it feels like is a basic truck that's had the appurtenances of luxury, like leather seats and reversing camera and nav and all this sort of stuff.
A bit like a Discovery, then.
Slathered onto it. Well, I think the Discovery is still more convincing as a sort of luxurious
Quality
car.
through, yeah.
You know, the Discovery, Land Rover, it's not often reported that Land Rover's sort of range model was based a few years ago. They made a decision to base it on BMWs. So Freelander is 3 Series, the Discovery is 5 Series, and the Range Rover is 7 Series, and that was they absolutely copied it to the letter.
Right.
And now they're going to do their Mini. So they're quite shameless about this. They just don't talk about it a lot. And the Discovery is like a 5 Series. You know, you feel like it's a fundamentally sort of well-engineered, luxurious car.
Is the Land Cruiser a Hilux?
It's a posh Hilux.
Is it really?
Yeah. And
really?
It feels a bit like that. And it feels very well made, but it just feels like it's not really as luxurious as it thinks it is. So I was hugely disappointed with it. But here's my point. I have discovered what I would call the car equivalent of Stockholm Syndrome. You know Stockholm Syndrome, where people get kidnapped,
Hostages,
but then after a
yeah.
while the hostage starts to feel empathy and even love for the kidnapper.
Because they're locked.
Because they're locked in it and there's no escape. Now, I had no escape. I took that Land Cruiser out of London on the Wednesday night. I drove up to stay at my parents' house in Cheshire that night, and then I had another schlep up to Scotland, and then we went from Glasgow and went to Ben Nevis, and then we started this 24-hour odyssey, and then finished up in Wales, and the next day we drove back to London. So sort of a whole hours and hours and hours in this car and thousands of miles. And I think this is the thing. It's the Stockholm Syndrome with cars. When a car serves you well under intense conditions and conditions of duress, and you're up against it, you start to fall in love with it and bond with it. And by the end, I was absolutely smitten with this Land Cruiser because it hadn't let us down. And I started looking at it, instead of thinking, God, that's an ugly, stupid, massive thing, I was thinking, that is fantastic. And I wish I could drive across the outback now. Or wish I could just completely carve across Africa, or drive from Alaska down to Brazil or something stupid in it, because I know it wouldn't let me down. It was sort of fundamentally right to its core, even though the luxurious stuff is actually irrelevant and just plastered on. I just bonded with it, even though technically it's not very good. And if you have got that kind of money to spend on a big posh 4x4, then go and get a Range Rover, for goodness sake. They're incredibly cheap these days because no one wants them. But yeah,
this is a little bit kind of. I remember a few years ago. What was the little rear-engined Skoda?
The Rapide.
Rapid.
Rapid was a coupe, yeah. Or the saloon.
The 120 Estelle. Well done for remembering that. It could have been a Lotus.
So I had saying the coupe was the Estelle, and
the saloon was the Estelle.
The saloon was the Estelle, and the coupe. Okay, well in that case it was the. I think it must have been the
Rapid.
I think it was the Rapid, yeah, and did quite a lengthy overnight drive from London with another couple of cars in convoy through the night, through snow and eventually blizzard, ending up somewhere in Switzerland. And having driven through about 7 or 8 hours of blizzard in the middle of the night in this little Skoda that just kept going on some pretty treacherous roads when other vehicles hadn't actually made it, I absolutely fell in love with that car. I love those Skodas.
Yeah.
I really do.
I wanted a Rapid rather. I seem to remember wanting to buy one because they were about $5,000 you could get one at one point. And I was going to take the Skoda badges off because today Skoda's not that cool a badge, but it's a million times better than it used to be. And I was going to try and stick Porsche badges on it because it's rear engine, you know.
Yeah, almost a 911.
Yeah, a budget 911.
Not quite the same engineering standard, but not bad, I have to say. Not
so
bad.
you didn't have Stockholm Syndrome, you had Geneva Syndrome with that car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Listen, I'll tell you what I've been driving after this.
Coming soon on Quantex Records. Now this is what we call some songs Gareth made up for the purposes of this sketch. Featuring, from his signature album, Jesus Is Nice, Richard Cliffs.
Wide through the hairpin, high as the revs will go. Deep and then turning late, keep the throttle low. I'm quick and I'm gifted, as quick as my team can bear. I've got to warn you, I'm fast in the corners, I'm quick everywhere. Hey everybody, let's get on a bus and go to Greece.
A band the enemy has never called punk legends.
Now!
It's the Love Rifles with Safety in the UK. And the top 26 hit from Alan Cost, Changes of Car.
Everybody's changing pace now, slowing down, not speeding up, selling
Now, this is what we call some songs Gareth made up for the purposes of this sketch.
Because without it, we'd have to play you over a minute of Nick Heidfeld describing what he had for lunch.
Gareth Jones on speed.
They say space is the ultimate luxury. They also say that space is the final frontier, but I think there's probably another one as
I was
well.
wondering how long it was going to take to get back. It wasn't very long.
If space is the ultimate luxury, then I've just spent a couple of weeks driving the most luxurious car I've ever driven. But it wasn't really a car, I don't think. Peugeot call it a car. They call it the Peugeot Expert Tepee. I know.
Very few vans named after tents.
See, I drove the Peugeot Amateur Tepee and it kept collapsing and leaking and things. It's rubbish. You just can't get the Native Americans to build them these days.
Have you driven a
got some holes in
transit?
or
Have you boys driven transits ever?
Yes. Yeah.
Ever? Have you driven the new one?
Yeah. Haven't driven the new one. No.
New one's
Driven
front
the
wheel
old one.
drive, isn't it?
It's both.
Yeah, well, make up your mind. Yeah, some
No, it
models
is.
are front wheel
It
drive.
has, the engine compartment is a perfect cube, so you can put the engine lengthways or crossways, depending on whether it's front drive or rear wheel drive. And when they launched it, sorry, I'm going to be boring now, but when they launched it at the launch, apparently for all the van buyers from big companies and the press and stuff, they had a team of engineers who converted a whole actual Transit from rear wheel drive to front wheel drive in an hour or something like that.
Wow.
It's that much
That
sort of
is pretty cool.
interchangeability of components and bits and pieces and
That's
stuff.
forward.
So the
Clever.
smaller, shorter wheelbase ones are front wheel drive. Because they don't, they can be. But then if you need to have a chassis cab or a really big, long van that needs to pull a lot of loads, then you can have it rear
Down the
drive.
back. You've driven transits.
Ingenious.
They're
Yeah, I
fun
mean-
when they're empty.
Yeah, they are. They're surprisingly quick when they're empty. And
Well, I'll tell you
although,
what.
of course, as I think most people who've driven a Transit at any point have probably discovered, when you're turning corners tightly, it's awfully easy to bump the middle of the truck on a post. Basically, cut the corner, dent
I
the
saw
side,
an
dent the
amazing
side of the
one
van. I'm
once
sure we'll
in the
remember that.
BBC Underground car park where someone had hired a long wheelbase Renault Master. Gareth and I worked in telly for a long time. They do terrible things in television where they'll get a researcher and they'll go and hire a van. We need to move some props somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Never driven
some,
before.
Yeah, some 23-year-old girl will have to go and get a van, and because that's her job to suddenly do this, and has never driven a big vehicle before. And they are a nightmare when you first get to grips with one. And in this case, tight, right angle bend to get to the ramp out of the underground car park of the BBC. And she just bananaed it against the wall where it stuck out. And we were there, two of my
hard to get
colleagues.
out, I
We
imagine.
wrote a whole song on the subsequent car journey as we left the car park called Researcher in a Van, which was all about things going wrong when you're in a van.
At least she got away without anybody noticing.
I used to
Except for
be,
these smart-ass gits from Top Gear.
as you know, I used to be a roadie for 5 years before I got into telly. And so I've spent many thousands, tens of thousands of miles either being a passenger or driving a transit. We came back from Glasgow once in a Transit Luton on 3 wheels. Glasgow to North Wales. We loaded all the equipment onto one side so the weight was off the wheel, which had no bearings, and literally drove on 3 wheels. But the Transit is great. Rear-wheel drive, you can get it sideways. It was great fun when they were empty. But this TP it's a van. They say it's a car, it's a van. But this was like, they're selling it as an MPV. Front-wheel drive. It was such an alien experience for someone who's used to driving rear-wheel drive vans like me. It was like a giant Ford car or something, or a Peugeot 205 or something.
But it did feel more like driving a car than driving a van. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It felt car-like. That's
Yeah, didn't feel like an S-Max, because the S-Max doesn't feel like a van. The S-Max really feels like a car.
Yeah, it feels better than a lot of normal cars.
Yeah.
Actually.
The Expert Tepee, it was so soft. It was so soft. Oh, it's a soft clutch. Oh, it's a soft gear stick, and the changes up here on the dashboard. Oh, the power steering.
Do you think they toughen all these things up for the actual van version?
I hope so.
Here's a good fact for you, van-wise. Right, the last Vauxhall Corsa, when they came to start selling it in the UK, they'd done a load of research, and Vauxhall and Ford and the big companies, they researched things out to the tiniest degree. One of the things they said to people, car buyers, do you still want an ashtray in your car? And almost universally came back with no, don't smoke, no, okay. All right, well, we've already designed one in the dashboard, but it's fine, we'll just bin that, get rid of the lighter in it, and we'll make it a storage compartment. But then they came to do the Corsa van, and they said to sort of a typical van buying focus group, do you still want an ashtray in your Corsa van? And they went, yeah, of course we bloody do. In some kind of strange Dick Van Dyke voice that they have. And so, yeah, the last Corsa You couldn't get a car one with an ashtray, couldn't get a van one without an ashtray.
Right, so if you want the ashtray, you buy the van. If you don't want the ashtray, you buy the car.
I'm sure you could just buy the ashtray fitment for the van and put it into your car.
Yeah,
Top tip there.
The Expert Tepee had a lot of car-like features to it. A couple of things I like. I like the
Windows.
way it had windows in the back, and it also had this nice thing where I'm sure they've got it in a lot of cars these days, but you hit the remote locking, and the ears, as I call them, the wing mirrors, fold in.
Yeah.
To confirm. But because it's got these two huge sliding doors, and we had all kinds of stuff in the back, like bikes and tents and children and more tents and sleeping bag and all that, occasionally the doors wouldn't close properly. You flip it, they don't close properly, the wing mirrors, because the door isn't closed properly. So, you can tell from a distance, it's not actually locked. So, and I thought that was quite neat. It was vast inside. There again, I did take out the rear row of 3 seats and one of the second row of seats, which allowed me to get the bikes down the side, as it were, and all the camping stuff in the back. And it's cheap. What is it, 24 grand or something? What do you pay for
Is that cheap these days? I don't know.
For something that big?
Manny hasn't bought a car for a while.
That's true. We borrow our cars, don't we? But if you were going to buy a Chrysler Voyager or something, I would...
Yeah, you'd
think
I'd be questioning my sanity
yeah.
if I was thinking about buying a Chrysler Voyager.
Exactly,
but
yeah.
That's me,
yeah.
You know.
And I enjoy driving it. It makes you drive gently. I said it was all soft. It makes you sort of smooth it along in a kind of a Jackie Stewart way.
Actually, your delightful partner, TV's Violet Berlin,
I've
told
heard
me
of
that it was the favourite of all the cars that you have blagged thus far, because it was the first one that had less power than
Gareth would have liked.
so you couldn't drive like a lunatic.
It's true. It had a top speed of 99 miles per hour, and its 0 to 60 time is, what is it, about 12 seconds or something like that. I've got it written down somewhere. Where is it? 14 seconds, 0 to 62, which is all right for a van, isn't it? It's not.
Well,
it also
I think
depends.
I probably had 2 cars at least that were slower than that in the past. So
But it
could be worse.
The one thing I've got against it, 'cause it was a very capable vehicle, the only thing I've got against it is it looks like it's got learning difficulties. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't look very intelligent from the front.
Well, it just got a little bit of that. The boxiness of it is fine.
Yeah,
That looks
absolutely,
business-like. It's just got a slight bit of sort of multipleness, if you like.
Oh,
you know?
now, come on, the multiple is nice.
No,
the
it's
multiple
not.
looks like
It's
a mutant.
No, it's... Thank you. It's got a ridiculous, horrible, absurd, sort of cobbled together looking vehicles. I can remember.
Hang on, just
It's the
Yeah,
lights.
we've got a picture of it here.
printout that you've got here, and it says Peugeot Expert Tepee. Do you spell Tepee like that?
Not in this country. They spell it T-E-P-E.
Tepee.
Tepee.
Anyway,
Tepee.
Oh, hang on, and there's a little box out here that says Model on Test Leisure.
It was the Leisure
So what you
model.
had was the Peugeot Expert Tepee Leisure.
Yes, Expert Leisure.
That's one of those internet programs that just does random anagrams. That's not a set of words that go together. But it says here, points of interest: modern and safe design.
It was, yeah.
Fair enough. Versatile people carrier. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Dependable HDI diesel engines.
It was,
and then
yeah.
the next point is seats potentially up to 9 people.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, really. Yeah, there were
9 people.
We had 2 in the front because there were 2 captain seats. But you can
Right.
get 3 in the front, the second row 3, and the third row 3 as well. But I took the third row out, and we only had 2 seats because we had these captain seats in the front. But they had the arms, I think you put your arm, which was very easy. Oh, very soft. But it had this antique stereo thing. It didn't have Bluetooth. It did talk to my mobile phone, but only if I took the SIM card out of my mobile phone and plugged it into the dash. Now, that's fine on a long journey, and it worked a treat. I could just talk to the van, and the van would talk back like a telephone. But if it's the van version, that's the last thing you want, because you're getting in and out of the van all the time.
Well, even often in a car, you're often just hopping in and out.
Yeah.
But and the other thing is that
lame,
SIM cards
Yeah.
aren't always that easy to get at.
No, they're
you
not.
know.
Are they?
Some
They're a complete
phones
pig to get out.
Yeah. Well,
I had a phone,
on the iPhone, for example.
Yeah, iPhone. You need a
bit
little tool. The
yeah.
last Nokia phone I had, you literally couldn't get it out without a hammer or something. I'm driving around a little Toyota Aygo this week, which has got Bluetooth. And Zog and I, being Mac fans, we've both got iPhones, so the iPhone's got Bluetooth. Oh, that's brilliant! I'll sync up the Bluetooth in the car. Superb. So I did, and it works very well. But what it does when you first set it up is it says it's all done on voice command. Like the system talks back to you. So it says Bluetooth phone detected, and rather than enter a passkey, it just says say a friendly phone name.
No!
So, and then it beeps. So I went, iPhone, in a sort of friendly way. Now, every time I start the car...
You say iPhone?
The car says back to me, I hear me going, iPhone! And then the woman goes, connected. It's preposterous.
brilliant.
My girlfriend...
I want to try driving this car now.
We'll go outside afterwards.
Yeah,
We'll go outside and we'll do it, because it's
I wanna try it.
hysterical.
I
And we'll
wanna
hear
try
the three-cylinder engine as well, which is the other great thing about that car.
They can do Bluetooth in an iGo, which is what? How much? How much do you pay for that? £8,000?
That one outside is, about just under £8,000.
£8,000. Why haven't they got it in this £24,000 lovely luxury van? Someone have to guess me. Love it though, love it. I have to say it was very good, but I'm not going to buy one because I like little fast cars. This isn't called Gareth Jones on Space, is it? No.
That is our spin-off NASA-based podcast, though.
That's just about it for Gareth Jones on Speed. Before we go and play you out with some van-related music, we're going to say something sensible, which we don't normally say on this show, but we were genuinely sad to hear of the death of Paul Newman this last week, who we like for a great number of reasons, not least of all, Zog's a big movie fan, and he liked cars, didn't he, Newman?
Oh, yeah, he did. Screen legends just don't come much bigger or better than Paul Newman. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Films really don't come much better than that, and he was beyond the Hollywood thing. He had a real, genuine enthusiasm and skill at racing cars.
Yeah.
Team owner. Let's not forget he came second at Le Mans in 1979.
He's a racing driver, you forget that. He's
total, but that's the thing.
Previous year, didn't he beat Mario Andretti in an endurance race, I believe, driving a Porsche 908?
Can't have been that good there. Oh, Mario, not Michael. Yes.
The point being, he loved his motorsport. He went out and did it. He was bloody good at it, and he was a very successful team owner as well. And I think we will
legend,
we will miss
proper
him.
legend.
Yeah, we saw him once. I remember going to Rockingham for the first ever Champ Car race in this country, and I saw him walk down the pit lane, and he walked like an old man. And this was 5 or 6 years ago, I suppose. He walked with that kind of Western swagger that an older gentleman has, but he was still insanely cool. And that's the best thing. Anyway, so Paul Newman, we'll miss you, man. Thank you very much indeed. Say goodbye, fellas.
Goodbye.
Bye now.
And we'll leave you with a song I've written about vans. Nothing to do with the Peugeot Expert Tepee whatsoever, although the Expert does get a mention, as does, I think, every other van on sale in Britain at the moment, with the exception of the Ford Transit and the Super Carry, which I don't think they make anymore. Here's White Van Man. Say goodbye, fellas, again.
Goodbye again.
80 on the motorway, sitting on my tail. He's so close I smell his breath. I hope his brakes don't fail. Swearing in the centre lane. Builders crack. Aggressively driven commercial vehicle. I want him on my back. Motorcyclists running through a red light most of the time. How's my driving written on his back? Or you're driving the shite, mate, written on mine. Swearing in the centre lane. Builders crack. Aggressively driven commercial vehicle. I want him off my back. Never stops for meals. expert master, boxer, partner, caddy, carry, go. Bongo, combo, bonus, monster, Gundam, mini, tornado, Manette, convoy, L300, Kangoo, pilot, Fiorino, White Dispatch, Emo, Escort, Canter, Transporter, and Corsair, L200, C50, Bimbo, Arena, Astroman, Maxi, Lexus, LT, Vito, California, Interstar, IX, Caravel, 400, Crafter, Extra, Romano. Swearing in the centre lane, white man, builders crack, white man, aggressively driven commercial vehicle, white man, I want him off my back, white man, swearing in the centre lane, white man, builders crack, white man, aggressively driven commercial vehicle, white man, I want him off my back. I want him off my back.
Get more info on this show at garethjones.tv. Write to the show on speed at garethjones.tv or subscribe for free at the iTunes Store. Gareth Jones on Speed is made by Whizbang.
iPhone.
Connected.
I've got to change that.